Kia ora, good evening. Simon Bridges is still not getting cut through with voters. That's according to our latest One News Colmar Brunton poll. Despite a big push to boost the National leader's popularity, support for him has dropped. Winston Peters, though, has seen a bounce since he's been standing in for Jacinda Ardern. Here's our political editor, Jessica Much.
This poll looks at how things have gone with Winston Peters in charge. So let's look at the numbers. National is dominating again on 45. It's stayed around this number since the election. Labor has dropped 1 point, but is still nipping at National's heels on 42. The Greens are up, now on 6%. A big change from the last poll. New Zealand First is back in the game, hitting the magical 5% mark. The Māori Party isn't in Parliament anymore, but is still registering with voters on 1%. Let's look at how these numbers translate to seats in Parliament and who's in power. Add together National's 55 and ACT's 1, and it's not enough. They fall short of the 61 seats needed to govern. But Labor, plus the Greens, plus New Zealand First, and they'll get there and have the numbers to form a government. Switching to preferred Prime Minister now. While Jacinda Ardern has been on leave, she's dropped 1 point, but is still very popular with 40%. Not good news for the leader of the opposition, though. He's been working hard to cement his position, but has dropped to 10%. Winston Peters has been filling in, and that's showed. He's up slightly to 5%. So an interesting snapshot of how things are looking while Jacinda Ardern's been on maternity leave. Touching down in Wellington to begin a new chapter of her Prime Ministership.
That's one flight down, probably a few more hundred to go.
Even without its leader in the limelight, the party has stayed steady. The numbers show that your party's actually done quite well without you being there. What do you think that says?
Well, actually, do you know, I'm pleased about that. You know, the fact that we have demonstrated steady numbers as a government as a whole.
But National is still riding high despite 10 months in opposition.
We've still got incredibly strong support. I think that is a reflection on the economy and the slowdown.
There's been a slowdown in support for the National leader too. The charm offensive hasn't worked and he's dropped 2 points.
Here I am today, Simon Bridges, leader of the National Party. Time to step things up.
The poll was taken during the National Party conference when the focus is on Simon Bridges and still no bounce.
This is very early days for me. I'm a new leader. I'm 5 months in. You know, I'm right at the start of not so long since an election. I know that this isn't going to be handed to me on a platter.
Judith Collins is still registering 2% in our preferred Prime Minister stakes, and John Key is too.
Well, he's the face of the future.
Winston Peters has been in the driving seat, and people have been fairly unfazed. We asked, how would you rate Winston Peters' recent performance as acting Prime Minister? Just over a quarter think he's done a good job. 57% say he's done okay. 6% say it was bad, and the rest don't know.
So here we've got 140 kilowatts of power.
Power that's up for grabs in just over 2 years' time.
So, Jess, what about the economy? How are people feeling on that issue?
So when we asked people in the poll the way they feel about the economy looking into the future hasn't really changed that much since we asked them in May. It's stable. Now that's in contrast to a lot of talk this week about business confidence falling and even a warning from our former Prime Minister John Key that things weren't looking that great in the future.
Not a great poll for Simon Bridges, though.
No, it's not. He's been trying really hard to get out there, travel the country and sell himself. He even released that video of him playing the drums, trying to show his personal side. It's not working. People don't know who he is. Now, the Sharks aren't circling too closely for him just yet, but he doesn't have a lot of time. He's up against a new Prime Minister who's just had a baby, and he's got to figure out how to get some traction in all of that.
Jessica Much, political editor. Thank you.